you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be talking about books I read in February and March. Now, usually when I do wrap-ups, I talk about the books I read in a chronological order. But today I thought, maybe let's change it a little bit. Maybe let's try something else. So I actually put these books in order from worst to best. So we're gonna start a bit rough with books I didn't like, and it's gonna gradually get better until we get to the best book I read during those 2 months. So I guess let's just get started. I read 9 books plus 1 short story. I'm not gonna count the short story because anyway, it's like almost like part of one of the books. So I will talk about it when I talk about that book. At the very bottom of the list, we've got a book called A Widow's Charm, and it's a book that I actually DNF'd. I really rarely DNF books. Like, I truly do not remember the last time I had DNF'd a book before this one. Even if I don't like some books, I try to push through, but I was really not feeling this book almost from the very beginning. So that's why I was like, if I'm really not enjoying it so much, why should I torture myself? So I DNF'd it. Now, I might come back to it one day. If I do, it's just out of curiosity, not because I think that this book is actually good or that I could like it one day. I don't think so. But okay, what is this book about? Because it was actually an arc that I received through NetGalley. I always pay attention to what the book is about when I apply for arcs, because obviously it has to be a book that I find interesting and a book that I actually want to read. So the premise is really fun. In this fantasy romance, a widow attempts to resurrect her husband by blackmailing her necromancer neighbor, only to find herself falling for him instead. Guys, I'm sorry if I look different or if the setting looks different, but I lost a few minutes of the footage, so I'm here to re-record it. But yeah, A Widow's Charm. So I DNF'd it at around 20%. So obviously, keep in mind that what I'm going to say about this book is only based off those 20%. And I know it may seem like, well, how can you say if you like the book or not based on just 20%? Well, I'd say it's because of the writing style. And now, if you're not enjoying the plot, there's a chance that it can still get better. But if you don't enjoy the writing, I mean, come on, it's not really gonna get better. So the writing was a big reason why I DNF'd it. It was really, really bad, especially the dialogue. I think it was trying to sound very historical, but at the same time, some parts of it felt very modern. I feel like the author really couldn't decide what tone they wanted for this book, so it just ended up feeling like a mess to me. And now I might have pushed through if we only got the female character's POV, but the moment we got to the male character's POV, I was like, oh hell no, I'm out of here. Because he was annoying and very unlikable and surprisingly very horny. Like, we just met him, but he just seems like someone that you want to punch in the face. Let me give you an example of one of the scenes that really took me aback. So, this is, mind you, this is the first time he's ever seeing her. And this is what he's thinking inside of his mind. To be honest, he was not even entirely certain he retained the adequate humanity to be a good bedfellow. But for this apparition of a woodland milkmaid, his dead heart gave a little stutter. No, that was a romantic fancy. It was only his cock waking up for the first time in an age. I'm sorry, what? Even reading that was so difficult. Reading that out loud was so difficult. It's so cringy. And then he keeps going. So it goes like, "Have you lost something?" she said, and he noticed that her voice was low and melodic. He wanted it to whisper things into his ear. He wanted to write her terrible, sincere poems, and that perhaps she could keep tucked away in her bosom while she milked her dried cows, or whatever it was forced milkmaids did. At that scene, I was like, I'm not gonna continue this book. Now, I'm thinking if I should come back to it just so I can have like, a better view of the entire book, so maybe I can give a more comprehensive review. But, well, you just experience what the writing in this book is like and what this, especially this character's narration is like. So you can, make your own opinion on whether it's something that you would want to read or not. It's not for me, so that was why I DNF'd it. The next book is another arc, okay? Another arc I didn't like. Now, this one I did finish, so I can, give a more comprehensive review of it. I know it might seem like, oh, I literally do not like every arc I receive. That is not true. In this video, we will have one more arc that I actually loved, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's talk about this one, and it's called An Arcane Inheritance. In this book, we follow Ellery, who is a scholarship student at this prestigious university that has some dark secrets, dark past, and she's trying to uncover it together with her academic rival, Hudson. It is a dark academia book, but it's also like fantasy and horror, so it's a mix of different genres. But generally, I do think of it as a dark academia book. I really don't think that it brought anything new to this genre. It has this very classic dark academia setting with an elite school and secret societies that are hiding magic. I'm sure you've read many, or at least have heard of many books like that. I did too. Now, of course, I don't think that every book needs to be groundbreaking, but it just feels like when I was reading it, I felt like I've read so many similar stories before. I was really not impressed. I think the author actually has a lot of potential. I do think that her writing can be beautiful and immersive, but at the same time, it tends to linger on irrelevant details, and very often they are also repeated. So, to give you an example, Hudson, one of the characters, smelling like shea butter and bergamot. I promise you, I did not need that many reminders that this is what he smells like. And I think for each scene, or almost each scene, we get detailed descriptions of what the characters are wearing, like from head to toe. And I think, is that really necessary? I mean, but let's come back to Hudson. Hudson is the male love interest. He just came across as a very stereotypical rich boy, and I just didn't really find him compelling. In fact, Ellery was the only character that felt fully developed. All the other characters, especially side characters, just felt really underwritten and pretty forgettable. The romance also didn't work for me. I feel like they didn't really have chemistry with each other, and the transition from rivals to lovers just happens way too quickly and doesn't feel earned. So, and also I think the worst part of the book was the middle section, because it dragged quite a lot. And that was when I was very close to DNFing it. So I think the last 20% of this book is actually pretty strong, because that is where things finally pick up. But getting there felt like a bit of a struggle. I didn't like this book. It was really nothing special. Like I said, I do think that the author, she has a good writing style. So that's why I think she has potential, and maybe in the future I might check out some of her other books. Who knows? It's definitely better writing than the previous book I talked about, but it just didn't really add anything new to the genre, and it didn't really grab my attention in any way. So I think I gave it 2 stars. Okay, let's go to the next book. And this is when we actually get to books that I enjoyed. So this should be maybe a bit more fun. Wuthering Heights. The funny thing is, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I went into it knowing that the characters are awful, and that part is pretty accurate. But despite that, I was really invested in this story. It has this story within a story format. It felt like Nellie. So Nellie is the servant at Wuthering Heights, and it felt like she was just sitting there telling me gossip or some sort of local legend, and I just couldn't get enough. I was so invested and I kept wanting to know what happens next. I couldn't stop. It was really entertaining in a way. I liked how this book explores the cycle of trauma and how, despite everything, the next generation manages to break it in a way. Because I don't know how many of you know that, but this book is not all about Heathcliff and Catherine. They are like the first generation. But the second book focuses a bit more on the second generation. And in a way, especially Cassie and Hareton, these two characters from the second generation, they're not perfect, but they just feel like they managed to break the cycle of trauma and abuse. So that felt really refreshing after all the chaos that came before. And their story is the closest thing that you will get to a romance in this book. I in general, I do not think it's a romance, and definitely Heathcliff and Catherine's relationship was not romantic. It was just pure chaos, and Heathcliff as a person is a little demon. I've actually recently made a video in which I ranked Wuthering Heights characters based on how irredeemable I think they are. So I will link it down below if you want to watch it. I go into more depth in about each one of these characters and what I personally think about them. It is a very dark and brutal book full of really selfish and difficult people, but it has some moments of decency. I just feel like this book feels realistic in a way. And I feel like, as extreme as Heathcliff is, it seems possible that someone like him could exist. There are crazy people like that out there. So this book is realistic and a bit scary in a way. Like if you think about someone like Heathcliff actually existing, that is terrifying. Again, not a love story. I think it's, in my personal opinion, it's a story about obsession and revenge, and maybe the second generation like trying to escape this generational trauma and abuse. Anyway, I think it's a gothic, haunting, and moody read. It's definitely not for everyone. But if you're ready for darkness and chaos, I can recommend it. So the next book is dun, 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 Mockingjay. So I was rereading The Hunger Games. I'm finally done. Maybe I shouldn't say finally. I'm obviously sad that I'm done with this series, but rereading it was really a ride. As much as I love this series with my whole heart, this book was my least favorite in this trilogy. The pacing felt a bit uneven. Some of the parts dragged quite a bit, and then the ending felt rushed in a way that didn't fully work for me. And it's because I felt like a lot of things ended up feeling unresolved, or at least not explored as much as I expected, especially when it comes to some of the side characters and Panem itself. I definitely wish we had some like more proper closure and some more info on these characters and the future of Panem and everything. And well, this book focuses on like the final stages of the war. So many characters die actually. I will not be saying names. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will just say that some of the deaths happened way too quickly. Maybe I didn't say that right. Maybe it's not like they happened quickly, but they were just handled very quickly. I just wish we as readers had some more space and time to actually process everything that happened. Some of the deaths just felt so abrupt that I barely had time to react before the story moved on. And I was like, what? So, yeah, that's definitely something that could have been handled a bit better. So, when it comes to romance, I'm glad that Katniss and Peeta get together. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm gonna probably write on the screen that it's a spoiler. Yeah, I'm glad that they get together, but the point is, for most of the book, they are very like distant from each other. Of course, if you've read the book, you know why. There is a reason for that. But what I mean is, when they actually like get close together again and slowly start a relationship, it all basically happens off page, and I wish we got to see more of that. Like, we didn't really get to see them just being together, I guess. And it's something that I know it's not a romance book, but like, come on, like we had 3 books, and you could have at least given us something more. I do feel like this book has like the darkest tone out of all the 3 books, and I do appreciate that. Like I said, it does talk about war, and I appreciate that the book doesn't try to make the ending like neat or heroic. It really stays true to the idea that war is brutal, that it leaves scars behind, it makes people traumatized. And that's definitely one of the strongest aspects of this book and the series. But yes, still, it's definitely in my opinion, the weakest book in the series. So I gave it 4 stars. Obviously, that still means I enjoyed it. I love this series. I will always recommend it. And definitely, if you've read this series like many, many years ago, I do encourage you to pick it up again and reread it. Because, like, for me personally, I read this series as a teenager, and I feel like rereading it really just hit me even harder in a way, because I think when I was a teenager, I was mainly reading it for like the thrill of the Hunger Games and everything. But now I'm an adult, and I just realize more things, and I can understand some of these things with a slightly different mindset. So I actually appreciate this series even more as an adult. Next is One of Us is Back. This is the final book in One of Us is Lying trilogy, which is a YA thriller mystery series. In this book, the Bayview crew comes back together for another summer, but things go wrong when a billboard gets hacked with the message, "Time for a new game, Bayview." When I actually read the first book, I was not the biggest fan, but the second book was really good, and this book was also really good. So even though I was not the biggest fan of the first book, the following 2 books really impressed me, and I have to say that I ended up really loving this series and really getting attached to these characters. As always with this series, the plot was very fast-paced and entertaining, and the plot twist actually surprised me. I especially liked how it connects back to events from the first book. That made everything feel more complete and intentional. The group dynamic is probably my favorite part. It's giving found family, and seeing how many of these characters kind of have grown from being stereotypical teens to more complex characters that actually feel real. It's just very satisfying. And I really love this group of characters. And there's also a tiny bit of romance. It's definitely not the most important part of this book. It's like a very small subplot, but especially the romance between Nate and Bronwyn just got me like blushing and giggling because they are so cute together. Overall, I think I can recommend this series. Like I said, the first book, my least favorite, but the second and third book really delivered. Next, we've got Beach Read, another Emily Henry book that I read, and I think it might be my second favorite book by Emily Henry now. This book talks about January, a romance writer who no longer believes in love, and Gus, a literary writer, and they become each other's neighbors and they challenge each other to write in each other's genres because they both have writer's block. So they feel like, okay, maybe if we write in each other's genres, maybe we can get out of the writer's block. So this is what they do. And honestly, even just looking at the cover and also hearing what it is about, it may seem like it's some really fluffy and cute romance, and in a way it is, but it's actually a lot darker than it seems. What I mean by dark is that it deals with some like really dark and heavy topics, such as grief and family issues and dealing with a lot of messy emotions. But I did actually enjoy the emotional depths of the story. I think I almost cried like 2 times while reading it, and that's how you know when a book has really hit you. I think I didn't actually cry, but I was very close to crying. There was this one scene that really stuck with me, and it was when January was just having a hard time. She was lying there and listening to this song Everybody Hurts on repeat, and there was just something so raw and real about that. Also, I've heard that this book is actually getting adapted, and that is also one of the reasons why I picked it up. I wanted to read it before it actually becomes a movie, and now that I know that I've enjoyed this book so much, I'm really, really excited for the adaptation. But okay, it is a romance book, so let's talk about the romance in this book. I did like it. I liked, their banter and their emotional connection that slowly unraveled over time. I also liked a lot of the side characters, and I think they added a lot of warmth to the story. Overall, I loved this book so much, and definitely one of my favorite Emily Henry books now, so I can highly recommend it. Alright, for some reason I forgot to talk about the short story that I read, so it was A Layover by Emily Henry. It's basically an extended epilogue to Beach Read. It was short but very cute, and it was really nice getting one more glimpse into January and Gus's life and maybe imagine what their future might look like. And a nice little detail is that there were cameos from the couples from People We Meet on Vacation and book lovers, so it was a nice little surprise for Emily Henry fans. And you can read this short story for free on Emily Henry's website, so if you've read Beach Read and you enjoyed it, I can definitely recommend this short story. Jane Eyre. This classic novel follows Jane Eyre, an orphan raised by a cruel aunt before being sent away to the harsh Lowood school. But despite everything, she grows into a strong, independent woman and becomes a governess at Thornfield Hall, where she meets Mr. Rochester, okay? And you guessed it, she starts to have feelings for him. First of all, I think it was a pretty bold novel for the time it was written in. It was published in 1847. Well, I mean, Charlotte herself, when she first published this book, used a male pseudonym so that the book wouldn't get overlooked or criticized simply because she was a woman, and that, I think that itself says a lot about the time it was written in. And yet she managed to create such a strong, timeless, and compelling protagonist. It is something I was really thinking about because, I was also reading Wuthering Heights, written by her sister, and the characters there are so toxic and unlikable. But Charlotte created such a strong and empowering and likable character. I just thought that the contrast was very interesting in a way. I think both of these books are good, but they are good in different ways, okay? I think Jane, protagonist who knows her worth and refuses to be controlled by anyone or, social expectations. She feels very real. She's emotional, strong, flawed, but like she is just the type of character that even modern readers can relate to and can really feel empowered by. I think the romance is also interesting because Mr. Rochester, it seems like he actually values her personality and her mind, not just what she represents or what she looks like. And he also doesn't really care about her status. He just likes her for who she is. Now, okay, he is obviously not perfect and he did make some stupid choices and some like really frustrating things. But at the end of the day, I did feel that they truly love each other and their connection is just really sweet and really passionate, but not in this like toxic way that, let's say, Heathcliff and Catherine were. I don't know, like, especially after she gains her financial independence, like they are literally on equal footing. Yes, he's older than her, but I really don't think that he takes advantage of her in any way. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I also liked this small detail, but it was interesting that neither of them is described as conventionally beautiful, and that's something just so interesting. Because I feel like in modern books, a lot of the characters, they need to be beautiful, they need to be portrayed as beautiful and perfect in a way, but here we've got characters that are not conventionally beautiful, and somehow that makes this relationship feel more genuine. I don't know, I loved that aspect. And also Jane, she doesn't really, she actually plans to never get married, so um she doesn't think of marriage as something that she needs to do. That's why I think it just hits even harder when she chooses to marry Rochester, because it's like it's not something that she feels like she needs to do. She's ready to never marry. She's ready to never have a husband. But in the end she does, but it's not because she feels like she needs to, that the society expects her to get married. She does so because she truly loves him, and I loved that part. But also, what's really amazing about this book is the gothic atmosphere. It's really so haunting and eerie in the best way. I think this book, as you can see, it is a bit thick and the pacing can be a bit slow at times, but I didn't really mind it. I think the details just really build the mood of this book and make everything feel heavier and more emotional. I think for me, it's that mix of independence and intense romance and gothic tension that really makes this novel so unforgettable. It's easily one of my favorite classics now. I really need to read more classics, by the way, because I'm enjoying myself so much reading them. But yeah, this one is one of my favorite classics and I loved it so much. Okay, so that was the book that I put on the third place. And now my second top book of this wrap up. Finally, we get to an arc that I actually enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed this one. It's called Weavingshaw. In this book, we follow a girl named Lena, who, in order to save her dying brother, makes a deal with this man who pays for people's secrets called the Saint of Silence. She ends up making a deal with him and she needs to work for him and help him track down a certain ghost. I really like this book for its atmosphere. It's very gothic, very moody, full of ghosts and haunted places. The writing is very descriptive and it makes everything easy to visualize. I also appreciated that this book touches on some important topics like being a refugee and dealing with discrimination, and the main character is a refugee herself, so it's not just something happening in the background. It is a big part of the main character's identity. It also has some romance in it, but it is very slow. It is the epitome of slow burn. If you like slow burn fantasy, I can recommend it. It's really slow, but it's so good. You can feel the chemistry, the tension between the characters, which just kept me so invested in the story. I really enjoyed the plot of this book as well. Something that I need to mention is that the ending clearly leaves room for a sequel. So it's not a standalone, definitely. There's definitely going to be a sequel. So only pick it up if you are ready for a new series. It's not a standalone, but I'm definitely personally I'm very excited about this second book. I really enjoyed this book so much, and yeah, I'm so glad I got an ARC. I feel like now I need to buy a physical copy because I liked it so much that I really want to display it on my shelf. So I might need to purchase a physical copy now, but it was such a good book. We finally come to the first book on this list, and that is Catching Fire. So we talked about Mockingjay earlier in this video, and I said that Mockingjay was my least favorite book. Here we've got Catching Fire, and that is actually my favorite book in this entire trilogy. It is an excellent sequel that expands the world building, raises the stakes, and really keeps the reader glued to the pages. The Quarter Quell Arena feels new and unpredictable, which makes the story even more intense. At the same time, the political tension is overflowing and everything feels way more dangerous than it did in the first book. It's no longer a story about surviving the games, but it's about resilience and rebellion against the capital. Suzanne Collins' writing is simple, but it's extremely effective at building tension. And in this book, Katniss just feels more human than ever. I mean, she's always felt human, but this book really hits hard because you can really feel how overwhelmed, scared, and exhausted she is. And you really feel the weight of everything she's going through. And then we've also got Peeta, and oh boy, I would protect him with my life. I love Peeta so much. The way he's ready to sacrifice himself and only wants to protect Katniss. There was the scene when Haymitch says, you could live 1,000 lifetimes and not deserve him. He's absolutely right. I mean, I don't hate Katniss, but come on, like, Peeta is an angel. In this book, actually, the line between the pretend romance and real feelings really starts to blur, and definitely Katniss, it's in this book when Katniss is beginning to realize that her feelings for Peeta might be actually real. So I really loved that, and we got introduced to characters like Finnick and Joanna, and they really added a lot of depth to the story, and each of them brings a different personality and perspective that makes the story richer and more engaging. So I really appreciated that. Ultimately, I love this series so much. I already said this when I was reviewing the Mockingjay, but truly amazing stuff. Okay, so these are all the books I read in February and March, ranked from the worst to the best. Let me know what you guys have been reading recently in the comments down below. But yeah, that's it for this video. Please like it and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more bookish videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!